Night shift workers of Reddit, what are some creepy things you've experienced in the middle of the night? Used to work late shift as classroom IT support for a college. We didn't get a lot of high priority calls from night classes, so among other duties, we'd get a lot of repairs and maintenance done that couldn't be done when the classrooms were in use during the day. I don't mind the dark, so I wasn't in a habit of turning lights in the classroom on if I was just gonna do something real quick on the computer. Well, I had a ticket to install something on the instructor and PC in a classroom I'd never been to before. It's about 10 p.m. when I get to this ticket and I head into the room. I get about halfway across the room and suddenly freeze with the hair on the back of my neck standing up, and it feels 100% like I'm being watched. No, I'm actually feeling surrounded. Then, as my eyes start to adjust, I see them. The entire classroom is encircled by hospital beds sticking out from the walls, and in every bed there's a person sitting up looking at me. Holy crap! I'm sorry, I blurt out, before finally realizing they're all just plastic dummies and I was in a nursing classroom. Honestly, if I was in a situation of cleaning a school at night and thought that there was 80 people in hospital beds watching me, I would probably poop myself, so the fact that you didn't do that puts you in a league above mine. This man's an elite level night IT man. If anything, I think it's weird that, you don't end up having an extreme reaction. Maybe a little bit too calm. Alright, what's up guys? It's Scrubby back again with another video. Today we're going to be looking at this thread of scary things people have witnessed during the night shift. I figured it would make a good video, hopefully keep y'all entertained, so yeah, without further ado, let's go. I work at a cafe in downtown. Quite a few homeless shelters in range and a huge drug problem. Anyways, one day I'm working behind the bar and this redhead kid in his early 20s sits down in our seating area and starts chanting stuff under his breath. After a minute or two, he starts moving his hands around like he's casting a spell. He then gets up and starts yelling and disturbing everyone. I walked over to him and tell him he needs to leave for the day, and the dude looked me straight in the eyes and said, "This is all a giant game and I'll kill you with one finger." At this point, whatever. I get death threats a lot down here, no biggie, shoo him on his way, and that's that. Fast forward to when we're closing up around 9 p.m. Not technically the night shift, but it gets dark here, so it counts. I lock the doors and start heading to the parking garage my car is in. It's probably about 6 blocks away, which is no big deal. But winter up here can get insanely dark. It's already pretty creepy in downtown, but it just adds something else to it. About a block or two of walking, I hear this hissing noise. I freak out because I can't see anyone around, so I pick up the pace a bit. I then heard hurried footsteps in the snow behind me. F that. I booked it to the staircase for the garage because I wasn't going to wait for the elevator. I'm about a staircase up and I hear the door I just went through slam shut. I finally make it to my car and get in as fast as possible. I look around and lo and behold, there's the redhead from earlier, only this time he's furious. He sees me in my car and books it full speed and starts hitting my window screaming, "I'm gonna kill you!" I door checked him and drove away, called the cops the next morning and they found him. Apparently, he thinks he's in the Illuminati and completely corroborated my story to the police. Small jail time and one restraining order later and I'm never gonna see him again. Stuff like this happens a lot. There's gotta be a better cafe for you to work in, dude. I'm just saying, I don't think it's normal to go to your job as a barista or a server and be getting death threats on the regular, especially the type of threats where they follow you to the parking garage and start beating on your car. I listen, dude, clearly dude's a little out of it. He thinks in the Illuminati, but you might want to look for a different job as well. Cause I don't know if I could deal with this every 3 days, The cops pull up next time. Oh, what was it this week? I worked at Walmart overnight for a while, and every single Friday, without fail, this old woman with 2 children would come in at around 10 or 11. She was obnoxiously loud as she shopped. She grabbed a bunch of different things and stuffed it all in her cart, and a few times asked one of our employees to help her grab something. Every Friday night, it was the same thing. Her talking voice was her yelling and stayed in the store sometimes until 5 a.m. I worked 10 to 7. She grabbed a cart full of stuff, which seemed like it was from every section of the store. She would do this with her 2 girls, and the weirdest part wasn't even that. It was the fact that she would leave her cart somewhere and walk out with nothing. Spent hours in the store grabbing a bunch of crap with her 2 kids and walked out without anything every Friday. I never figured out why. It's not creepy scary, more just creepy weird. There was also a creepy sad time where this woman was shopping and she was obviously messed up and her face showed it. She was basically unresponsive to anyone and anything laughing as she was walking through the store. I only saw her once walking by with her kid. He was about 7, saying things like, "Hey, can you hear me? It's me. Why aren't you talking to me?" Stuff like that. Really sad, but those are my only overnight stories. I don't work there anymore. Alright, so the second story is obviously just insanely sad. I hope that kid got into a better situation and hopefully his mom figured it out. That being said, what is going on with the lady that is just deciding to wander around Walmart for 7 hours filling up carts and then leaving it as a weekly activity? Whatever, one time you go in, for a shopping spree, there's an emergency, you gotta flee the store, leave a bunch of carts. The embarrassment should be that you should never go back, right? That being said, dude, is this just their normal Friday night, instead of going to the club? Oh, let's go to Walmart and fill up carts and then abandon them. It's so much fun. I used to work overnight phone support for enterprise customers, specifically those in APAC. Frankly, our market segment there was very, very small, and on average, each person working got 3 or 5 calls a week. The office building we were in used to be a shipping receiving warehouse and had a horrendous sodium vapor halogens. We petitioned to have the lights turned out at night just because of how bad the lighting was. This one evening, I was watching Frailty with headphones in while waiting for my next call, and I remember being a tense moment in the movie, and then I heard a growling over my shoulder. I checked and there was nothing there and chalked it up to maybe just being from the movie. A couple minutes later, I hear the growling again, and it's not a dog, it's not the movie. I tap one of my coworkers and ask if they hear it too, and he does, so we start searching. I end up at the far corner of the cubicle farm area and hear the growling again, and it's right behind me. I turn around and there's nothing there. The growling is right in front of me, and I peeked into the large manager's cube, and there's the growling. It's the security guard asleep under the desk. This guy picked the only section of the building that had people staffed overnight, and the only section that required badged entry. The next morning, on my way out of the building, I told the security guard there were odd noises coming from a manager's cube, and he went pale and said, "I'll have that added to my report." Alright, this one wasn't that bad, because at first I'm leaning towards serial killer, but I guess if it ends up just being your boss or security guard taking a nap, that's not that bad, 2 a.m., just random growling sounds. There's a bear in the office. Nah, that's just Jeremy. He fell asleep under the desk again. Oh, okay, alright, well that's not as bad. I used to work the night shift as a guard in prison. One night, I found a knife just laying out in the open, dark, empty kitchen. This is really bad because it means about 2 safety checkpoints have been missed. All the sharps are supposed to be locked up and counted at the end of an inmate's shift, and the assumption is that it might have been deliberate. A weapon left out for someone to attack someone else. It was pretty creepy, seeing that lone knife laying on the counter in the dark kitchen because everything else was perfectly clean. My head was on pretty dramatic swivel until I got to the captain's office. Also, in the middle of the night, I'd have to walk around the building a few times, and did you know raccoons will growl at you from the bushes even though you can't see them? 'Cause I sure didn't. When I came inside wide-eyed saying, "I think I hear growling in the bushes. Am I nuts?" They were all like, "Oh, that's the raccoons. Thanks for the heads up, guys. Jeez." This guy's turned tough as nails from his job as a prison guard because he really went from like, "Oh yeah, one time there was a knife that was potentially left out to be a weapon. That was pretty scary," to, "Oh, and there's also raccoons that live in the bushes." That means that in this guy's mind, they're on the same level. You know what I mean? He's like, raccoons, knives, whatever, tomato. Damn, man. You're really out here drinking from the salty spittoon. That's how tough you are. I work night shifts at a gas station, and during the weekdays, it's pretty quiet. It's usually only the truckers and taxi drivers who pop by for coffee and the sandwiches that we have. But one night, I was talking with one of the cab drivers, and a car drives into the lot, parks, and sits with its floodlights on bright, aimed towards the glass front. It was kinda weird, but maybe the guy forgot he had it on. It happens from time to time. The guy finally enters after maybe 5 minutes of flooding the store part with light, and it's obvious that he's on something. He's jittery, wide-eyed, looks disheveled, and paces around before he buys a coffee and starts staring at me intensely throughout the entire purchase. Worth mentioning, I'm a 5'2" chick with the opposite of an unfriendly demeanor. I smile friendly to everyone, but I work alone for 8 hours in the dead of night. Eerie guy, pays for his coffee without a single word, despite my friendly chattiness, so I continue talking conversing with the cab driver, but I still feel this guy staring at me. It was very intense and unsettling. The cab guy probably notices this and leans on the counter and slides his card over, taking a bit of a hushed tone and saying that I should call him when I get off work if that guy sticks around because he's getting creepy vibes from him. Turns out cab guy was right. This guy stuck around through the shop for about an hour till closing, staring at me cleaning up, until some truckers arrived, and then he left and sat in his car, parked up against the window, staring until closing time. I called the cab guy and he gave me a free ride home. He later told me the weirdo had been driving behind him with his taxi and had his lights on full power the entire time. The whole thing was just creepy. I feel like working night shift at a gas station has got to be one of the scariest jobs, especially because, like, yeah, you never know who's gonna come into the store and what they're gonna act like. Clearly the dude is up to no good if he's willing to just sit outside of a store for hours at a time, just flooding it with his floodlights on, and then as soon as somebody else shows up, he's dipping out. Yeah, something definitely wasn't right, man. You're way braver than me. I don't know if I would have the balls to work all night at a 7-Eleven. I'm an aircraft maintainer in the Air Force, and I've been on night shift pretty much my whole career. There is a form of servicing we have to do on the aircraft called loxing, which is where you service the aircraft with liquid oxygen for the pilots. The job is dangerous, so you are the only one allowed in the vicinity of the plane, and you're wearing a bunch of gear. I had to do a LOX job on the other side of the ramp from everyone else, and essentially you're away. I finished my LOX job and hopped on the aircraft to take down the numbers for our forms. In the process of me putting the power on, I heard this horrific pshh happen from what felt like every corner of the plane. When you're alone in the dark in a large dark plane, all you can really do is panic. Turns out the shutoff valve where I was servicing had frozen itself open and proceeded to piss liquid oxygen everywhere. So not only did I have to change my pants, but I also had to redo the job. To make matters worse, of course, it's like during a dangerous job, you know, I'd probably need a new pair of pants alone on a dark plane and hearing a bunch of strange noises that I'm not supposed to be hearing. Hearing it right after I just did a dangerous job, I'm just gonna assume that I messed up somewhere and now I'm just in that weird in-between zone from Percy Jackson. This isn't fair because I worked a night shift in a psych facility. Basically, I've seen a lot of things when working at night, from people coming in high and psychotic to people huddling naked in the corner of a room whispering. The scariest thing I've ever seen was a patient coming out to the nurse's station and saying someone's outside of their window looking in. From admission, they'd been experiencing pretty strong hallucinations, so we just assumed it was another one. To provide some ease, we went into the room to verify that there was no one there and provide them relief and comfort. We have a removable draw curtain in the room and they were shut. I walked up to it and asked if it was this window, and the patient said that it was. I drew it open and had quite possibly the biggest scare of my entire life because there was somebody there, wide-eyed, staring right back at us through the window. He ran off when we saw him and we ended up calling the police as well as security. They never found the guy and we never saw him again, and it still creeps me out to this day. Bro, could you imagine the dude? Everyone's like, you've been hallucinating. He walks out there. There's really someone at my window, you know? And there actually is someone at his window? Did that make him feel like all the hallucinations were more real? Like, I'm just saying, what are the odds that there's actually some random dude at a psych facility staring into the window? Seems like he maybe should be in there amongst the patients, you know? Delivery driver. I was out delivering my last order of the night at about 2 a.m. I typically leave my car running when I run up to the house or apartment. This apartment was rather hard to find, and it took me almost 4 minutes to get back to my car. As I walked around the corner of the apartment, I noticed someone standing right next to my driver's side door, staring straight at the window, and he wasn't moving. I held back for a second and then slowly walked up to the car and shouted, "Hey, what are you doing, man?" He didn't say a word or move. It was at this point I was about to throw up in suspense. As I walked closer, he looked straight at me, grinned, and then walked away. Not a single word. Alright, so obviously this is a guess. It could have just been some crazy dude, but you know, I feel like your car possibly could have been about to get stolen, dude. Maybe don't leave it running for 4 minutes while you're exploring an apartment complex you don't know. That dude probably walked by, saw a running car, watched it for 4 minutes, nobody came back, and thought, here's some something to joyride for the night. Lucky you came back when you did. That's probably why he didn't say anything. There was no explanation for it. Not my story, but my father's. He was a paramedic and got called out one night to pick up a guy who was found dead in his truck. Dude was apparently there for a while because rigor mortis had set in. To make things even creepier, it was apparently in a large thunderstorm. They get the dude out and manage to straighten all the limbs out well enough to put the dead guy on the stretcher. It's like 3 a.m. and the mortician couldn't get into the morgue until 4, so they opted to drive around waiting instead of posting up at the station. About 15 minutes into the driving, the dude apparently sat straight up and let out a large moan. Dude was still dead, but scares the crap out of literally everyone. Later, my dad figured out when you straighten out a stiff body, gases shift and it can cause weird things. But basically, a dead dude got straightened out only to sit up, moan, and scare the crap out of everyone. Yeah, man, if I was in charge of transporting bodies and one of them sat up and for the next 15 seconds I thought I was about to be patient zero in the zombie outbreak, I probably would have crapped myself too. I mean, let's be honest, hopefully you're not too familiar with the process of what happens to dead bodies. If you're too much of an expert on that, you better either be a mortician or yeah, that's basically the only person that should know enough to have been prepared for that scenario. It should have scared them, you know? It hit crunch time towards the end of a project and there was a lot of people in the building I work at chugging away to their deadlines commonly until 5 or 6 a.m. So not night shift, but close enough. Anyways, it hits 4:45 a.m. and I decided to head off for some sleep and then come back in for a 10 a.m. shift. I said bye to some friends and promptly began heading back home, which is barely a 15-minute walk away. As I walk across the car park, I spot a guy walking on the pavement way on the opposite side, dressed in full black tracksuit with his hood up and cap down. Naturally, just a suspicious guy, and me being kind of small, I kept my eye on him. I hit just the other side towards 2 buildings on my way to the work site, and I hear him shouting. I turn my head to look, and he's clearly aiming at me. Very hostile, but unable to make out the words. I pick up the pace, walking between these buildings, and decided to look back over my shoulder. And there he was, arms up in the air, walking menacingly towards me in the center of the road. Now I should add here, the car park we have is very big, and there's no way the guy would have crossed it in the minute or two it took for me to look and without running. This guy was definitely out to terrorize me, and I have never been stalked in my life, and at this point a dry fear came over me and I immediately worked out 2 options. I could run, walk to the student dorms in view and pretend to be a student locked out, keep walking home, or go back to my work building. I pretty much decided that all of these were moot as I didn't want to get chased at close to 5 a.m. and be trapped outside a building with a guy that could easily catch up to me as I stood pretending to let the guy know where I lived, especially since there were a lot of dark places I could see myself being dragged down by the guy. And I didn't want to go back to the workplace because I would have to turn back towards him and walk down an even darker alleyway, which I don't like doing during the day, let alone at night. So I just kept walking, picking up my pace, not enough to be obvious, but enough for me to make sure there was some distance between us. I walked past the dorms and turned onto the main road where there were streetlights and immediately took out my phone to ring one of my coworkers. I blew up his phone as I kept my other hand in my pocket, wrapped around my keys, so if it turned nasty, I would have a weapon to do some damage. Thankfully, after 6 times, the coworker picked up and immediately ran out to where I was, staying on the phone with me. I ended up dashing into the first takeaway place that was open and just stood waiting for my coworker to appear. The guy never followed me down the turn I took to get said takeaway, and he must have just carried on walking. I got walked home, and whilst I was a little nervous walking home late at night afterwards, I'm not afraid of doing it again, just more cautious now and can often tell when someone I'm about to head off that I'm going to message them when I get home. Nothing's bad has happened since, and that was close to 2 months ago now. I'm insanely glad you're okay, but yeah, I can understand why that's an insanely scary night shift experience too, though. Nothing says fun like having to make the casual decision that, okay, I can't run, I can't go into this dorm, I basically just have to keep walking and hope for the best while some crazy dude is angrily walking towards you. I hope your company upped your security though, because it would suck to have to walk through the car park after that and not feel any safer. I used to work overnights at a hotel. Usually, most of the stuff I dealt with was gross, not scary, but one night, right around Christmas, I was filing papers alone at the front desk and the automatic doors opened and no one came through. The door closed about 20 seconds later and all the ornaments on the lobby Christmas tree were swinging. Like a gust of wind had just blown through them. That scared the crap out of me because I was standing about 10 feet away and there was absolutely no wind that. After the ornaments had stopped, this one candy cane ornament near the bottom kept swinging very quickly for 45 minutes. I went over to see if there was a draft or something, but as soon as I got behind the counter, it stopped cold. My coworker was present for the swinging and the cold to stop, and the rest of the night we didn't do anything else alone. I love the idea of some ghost just wanting to come mess with a hotel worker, bro. You know, not that hotel workers aren't important, but like, you're in the afterlife, dude. Clearly you got some unfinished business, you know? What is the purpose of life? And you're like, nah, I'm still gonna go mess with the Holiday Inn employee instead of figuring that out. What, are you gonna spend another Christmas terrorizing people, Mr. Ghosty? Used to work night shifts at Toys R Us. At night, they would turn half the lights off to save money on power in the girls' toy section. Oh god, the girls' toy section at night was so creepy. You're carrying a box down the aisle and it's perfectly silent, and then the motion sensors on the dolls will catch your movement, and all at once, the toys will turn and follow you with their lifeless eyes before screaming or laughing or crying in that horrible electronic box way, flailing about. And I'm a fully grown 6'4", 300-pound hairy man, and I have never noped my way out as fast as getting away from that section at night. See, I'm gonna say that this one's actually a perfectly rational fear because of Chucky. That was a doll that went crazy and started yeeting people. Yeah, if I'm in the middle of a dark store at night and all the dolls start looking at me and flailing trying to get out of the box, I'm out too, okay? I've seen Chucky, I know how this ends. No, thank you. I worked night crew at a grocery store years ago. I took the trash out while wearing headphones, and it was probably 10 bags. Spoils in trash from the bathrooms. I was tossing the second to last dripping, heavy and rotten bag into the dumpster when I saw movement. A hand, and then his head popped up. This guy was hanging out in the dumpster and let me throw heavy, wet bags of bad meat, moldy fruit, and public bathroom trash on top of him. He scared me, but later I felt really bad about it. I just don't know why he took all that, you know? Like, it's not like he waited till you were gone. Obviously, he decided to get out while you're still throwing the bags in, so why let the first 8 land on top of you? After bag 1, you better be making the scramble to get out of there. He might have been okay with the bathroom trash, alright, but the bad meat, that was too far. I don't really think this one's on you because you're wearing headphones. Really no way you could have known, but I get feeling bad about it because you did throw trash on a dude. But you don't expect people to be hanging in the dumpster, so it's okay. Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. And of course, subscribe if you're new and turn on those notifications. I post videos like this pretty often. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, anyways, like I said, that'll do it for the video. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot. And hopefully I will see each and every single one of you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.